All right, let's go over some of the very basics of this Python language. So as always, I want to open up a blank folder. That way I've got kind of a blank canvas to put all my files. So first things first, let's open a folder. I just have a little Python class folder here. We'll call this one, let's make a new folder in here called data types. Oops. Okay, and then let's open that one. All right, so now I've got that folder here and absolutely nothing in this directory. All right, so if we create a new file here, we'll call it whatever, data types.py for Python. All right, so Python has quite a few data types. We're not going to mess with most of them. We're just going to use the basics. So right off the bat, here is a list of many of them. I actually don't think this is totally complete. I think there's a few other ones like dates, things like that. But for now, this is a pretty darn good list of all of the ones that we would ever use. We're not going to use most of these though. We're not going to use these. We're not going to use these. So our list that we're going to play with is down to about 6. Okay. So this first one, str, this is a string class. If you hover your mouse over this in VS Code, it's going to give you quite a bit of information on these, which is really handy. This is an integer, basically just single, not single digits, but digits that don't have a decimal place. So these can be negative numbers or positive, but just 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, things like that, not 1.2. For that one, we would go to a float. Okay, so float is decimals. So 0.1, 4.6, 9.6842, things like that. A list is, well, it's a list. A list is, and we'll get into all these, but a list is going to be simply just a list of things. It can be numbers, it can be letters, it can be objects. Anyway, a range, really, how would you explain a range? Most of the time it's just a list of numbers between one number and another. So it can be a range of numbers between 0 and 5, 2 and 20, things like that. You can count backwards. You can go a range from 10 to 0, counting backwards. We'll use this in our for loops. And then the last one that we're going to deal with is a bool. This is short for Boolean. A Boolean is literally just true or false, 0 or 1. We're gonna use true or false in this case. So let me get rid of this stuff, and we're gonna walk through most of these here. So, for example, let's say, and don't worry what I call these. These are just variable names. So a variable is just the name of an object that I'm going to assign a value to. So in this case, I'm going to call it an int number, okay? Because I can't call it int, because int is a data type. And as soon as I just type int, you can see the color changed. But as soon as I type something else beside int here, you can see the color changed. So we'll call this int number. I'm gonna give that the value of 5, okay? And you can see now that Python has color coded this for me. 5s, we call them literals, but basically numbers are one color. This equal sign is a white, and then this variable name, which if you hover your mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly what it is. It's a variable. It's an int, and we've assigned it the literal value of 5. Okay. So you can do with numbers what you normally do. You can do math with them. So we can say, we can create another variable called answer. Okay. And let's assign the value of our int number times, I don't know, 2. Okay. And then we can print it. And our first program was print hello world, so we can print this answer right here. We can say print. Now print is just a built-in Python function. We'll get into quite a few of these, but print it can print all sorts of things. So in our case, we're gonna get into the syntax of this, but for now, I'm gonna use what's called a formatted string. We could literally just put answer here if you want it, and it will print. In fact, let's just do that. So if I save this and hit our play button here, we are assigning the value 5 into this variable name, int number. Then we're multiplying that number times 2 and assigning that into our variable called answer, and then we're going to print our answer. So if I hit play here, you'll see there it is. So 10. Okay. Now I can make this prettier. I can do a formatted string. I can say f with our quotes, and I can say I can just write the text 5 times 2, or how you do your times is 5 times 2 equals in quotes, and then it's a formatted string, so I can put my variable in brackets. So bracket here, and then put the whole thing in quotes. So F stands for formatted. You can see I have a quote here and a quote here, and this is all text. It's all colored, in my case kind of a orangish color. And then I have my brackets, and in the brackets I can put any variable name, and it will replace this whole thing right here with the actual value that's stored in the answer. So 5 times 2 should equal 10. So I can save this, hit play, and sure enough, you can see right down here, 5 times 2 equals 10. Okay. So, all right, so one of our other data types was a float. So we'll call this, because I have no other better way to name this, I'll call it float number. Now a float is a decimal, so any number with a decimal point. So this could be 0.1, or it could be 5.3, 3, 3, 4. We'll just keep that. And it's exactly just like we did up here. Now I can make answer again equal to float, oops, number times 2. Okay, now I can print it. So I'm just going to copy this text right here. I can do that with Command C. I'm on a Mac. I guess you're on a PC, so it'd be Control C for copy and Control V for paste. And I'll say 5 point. Remember, this is just text here. This is not a real number. 3, 3, 3, 4 times 2 equals, and let's see what it equals. So hit play. And sure enough, if you punch this in your calculator, you will get 10.6668. Okay, so let me close this. What else do we have? We talked about strings right here, which is our text that's in quotes. So that's a str, a string. Okay, so we're going to call this our string variable. Okay, and then now a string is just whatever's in quotes. So we can say this is a string. Okay, super simple, not much to it. And of course, since it's already a string, we can just print it. So print string, whoops, with a variable. Okay, done. And again, if we hit save, play it, this is a string. I think you guys are going to find that Python's pretty straightforward. You can just read it and kind of understand what's going on most of the time. All right, what else? Oh, lists. So a list, Okay, you can see VS Code already knows what it is. Okay, but we're not going to stop here. We're going to actually, this is going to be our variable name. So I can't use list as my variable name because it's a built-in thing in Python. So we'll call this list variable. Okay. Now a list is set up with brackets like this. Now in VS Code, if I type one bracket, you'll notice it types the other one for me, which is great. VS Code will do this with parentheses too. Now in these brackets, you can put whatever you want, and you just need to separate with a comma. So we're going to use numbers here: 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops. 4 and 5. Okay, here's our list. Spaces don't matter. I just get picky on formatting, but this is totally legal. No problem at all. Okay, but just for cleanliness, let's stick with that. Now we can print this again. So print, there's my parentheses. We'll call it list variable. Okay. And if we want to do this one, so we're going to see all of these so far. Print 5 times 2. We'll print this mess. We'll print, this is a string, and we're going to print all the values of this list that we just made. So hit play, and sure enough, there it is. Okay. Again, not rocket surgery. Pretty straightforward stuff. And the last one that we're going to go through, probably the simplest one because it only has one of two values, is a Boolean. So in Python, it's shortened to bool, B-O-O-L. Okay, so we're going to call this bool variable, and in our case, we're going to make this equal to false or true, doesn't matter. Okay, so that's about all there is to Booleans. Now, we're going to use these in a whole bunch of different ways, but one of the main ways that we use these is for making choices. So Python can, the path it takes through your code can change depending on the values in various variables. So if something's true, it might go one way. If something's false, it might go another way. So we could write something like that, like this. So if bool variable, oops. So if bool variable, so this thing right here is true, okay, which if this is true, you could also say equals true. This is totally viable also, okay. Don't worry about syntax, we're going to get into this. You could say print this is true, okay. And again, we're going to get into this later, but else. So if this is false, it will skip down to here. So if it's true, do this. Otherwise, this is another way to say this. Print it's false. Okay. Now, we already know this is false because we set it to false right here. So if I hit play, sure enough, it should say it's false. Okay. Now we'll get into this more later, but I just want to go through the basic data types right now before we get too far down the road. All right.